$17.4 billion are being given annually to the elites in subsidies. This is socialism for the rich. You already have socialism. It's for the rich.
What lessons do these movements teach us about the strategy of left in Pakistan today? Also because I remember reading your book, Why Should Young People Join the Left in Pakistan?
The US has been at war almost every year since 1941. And now all of that is accelerating. Just this year, they've kidnapped a president in Venezuela.
On foreign policy issues like Palestine, Kashmir, the US-Iran-Israel war, and the US-China rivalry over the years as well.
Most young people, despite having a really good job and showing good skills, even they will not be able to ever buy land in this country.
Hello and welcome to another episode. Today we have with us Ammar Ali Jan, who needs no introduction, but still I would like to tell you that he is a political activist, academic and historian. He is also the founder and general secretary of Haqooq-e-Khalq Party and also a member of Progressive International. Moreover, he has also authored a book, Rule by Fear, 8 Theses on Authoritarianism in Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Thank you so much for joining. Today we will discuss mainly about the politics of left in Pakistan. So first of all, my question is that could you please explain that how left politics first emerged in Pakistan and what are the traditions of the Pakistani left that inspired you?
Well, we have a long history of struggles of peasants and workers in the subcontinent. And this goes back to the revolts of farmers and peasants in the 18th and the 19th century when British colonialism was taking hold. And all of that, those struggles, those defeats, those victories, that resistance culminated in the formation of the Communist Party of India. This is 1921. And this is a very interesting story. You had the first socialist revolution in Russia in 1917. And by 1919, we had a big anti-colonial movement, not only in India, but across the colonized world, in Egypt, in Indonesia, in Ireland, in India. And the shape the movement took in the subcontinent was that of the Khilafat movement.
Yes.
So it was this claim by Indian Muslims, which eventually Gandhi also supported, that Indian Muslims should be given a say in the affairs of the British Empire, and what happens to Turkey matters to Indian Muslims. And since Indian Muslims played a very leading role in the First World War for the British,
yes,
they should be heard. And this is also the time when Gandhi becomes a superstar. It's actually his alliance with the Khilafat movement that turns him into a star. And then you have a lot of young people who leave India after there's a fatwa which declares it Darul Harb, so a place of war, and they go to Afghanistan. From Afghanistan, they're kicked out. They enter Central Asia, which at that time was experiencing a civil war between the socialists and the counter-revolutionaries, so the Reds and the Whites. And in there you had people like Shaukat Usmani and others who were struck by the message of the Bolsheviks, of the communist movement, of the socialist movement. And they joined ranks with the Red Army. And eventually when Lenin found out about this group of Indians, he brought them to Tashkent, where the Soviet Union had created a University of the Toilers of the East, it was called. And another Indian revolutionary from Bengal, M.N. Roy, was the chief instructor at this university. And it's at that place in Tashkent that the Communist Party of India was founded, with Maulana Hasrat Mohani as the general secretary. Ammar Roy was part of it. Shaukat Usmani was part of it. And then, of course, you have the history of the 1920s and 1930s, where the communal question between Muslims and Hindus becomes very central to Indian politics. But within that, you also have figures like Bhagat Singh, who are part of the socialist movement, who's one of the most inspirational heroes of the anti-colonial movement in the subcontinent. And then very few people know this, but the communist movement of India actually supported the demand of Muslims of India to create a separate country, Pakistan. So Jinnah attracted a lot of young Marxists from Muslims. One person in particular, Daniel Latifi, became very central to the Muslim League. He was actually the person who wrote the manifesto of the Punjab Muslim League in 1944 on the basis of which the party contested the elections in 1946 and won the elections. And this was a radical program of land redistribution, of nationalization of industries, of an anti-imperialist foreign policy. And similarly, you had big movements in Bengal, the Tobacco movement, which the communists and the Muslim leagues workers were involved in. So the basis of Pakistan has socialism in it already embedded. Faiz Ahmed Faiz was part of this movement. Sierra Aslam was part of this movement. Daniel Latifi was part of this movement. Mia Iftikharuddin was part of this movement. So, these were the stalwarts of, the youth at that time. And they were both members of the Communist Party and members of the Muslim League. So that's the origin of the left. And unfortunately, very quickly after the creation of Pakistan, when we saw this counter-revolution where you had undemocratic forces take over, they banned the Communist Party of Pakistan. They arrested Faiz Saab. Now he's celebrated, but during his lifetime he was declared a traitor. And, the movement went underground. Yet, if you look at any major struggle in our history, whether it's 68, 69, that overthrew Ayub Khan, the creation of the Constitution of Pakistan, the democratic movement against General Ziaul Haq called the Movement for Restoration of Democracy, the lawyers' movement in 2007, 2008, the student movement in 2019, or any movement that you see, you'll find traces of left activists who have always been on the front lines. And that's what inspires me about this history.
Okay, very well said. So you have been deeply involved in student and workers' movement from the Student Solidarity March to union organizing. What lessons do these movements teach us about the strategy of left in Pakistan today? Also because I remember reading your book, you also have mentioned about this, that why is today's left trying to build movements across issues like feminism, environmentalism, and peasants' rights, rather than focusing solely on industrial workers?
That's a very good question. You see, when Marxism enters non-European countries, right? You see, in Europe, we had the industrial working class. These were highly industrialized societies by the late 19th century. So it made more sense to talk about the proletariat, the working class. But once, you have revolts taking place in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, then the question is, what would unite all people? And the people, majority of the people were peasants. So the question of land became central. The question of the peasantry became central. In Latin America, the indigenous question became very central because, you had a genocide against local populations. That's how you had settler colonialism. So that question became very important. The question of race became very important. In the US, even today, you've heard of Malcolm X and Black Panthers and all those great revolutionary heroes and movements. They stem out of that history where capitalism used racial difference to suppress any unity between the working class. So it became important to take these differences seriously. Similarly, with women, capital tries to reduce its costs, and it gives all the responsibilities of social reproduction to women. That's a way of saving money and extracting more value out of a worker. If you're not taking care of the worker, you are defining these gender roles on the basis of which you can suppress the wages of the worker and suppress the social requirements such as health, education, caregiving would be given to women. Yeah. So all of this, if you look at it from the totality of the system, you recognize that all of these struggles in their separate domains are actually the struggle against the same system. Hence, a Peasant Worker Alliance, an alliance of women's rights activists, an alliance of anti-racial activists, and those who today are fighting against US imperialism. The alliance of all these forces is both natural and necessary if we are to win this fight.
Okay. So how does the left's critique of capitalism and imperialism shape its position on foreign policy issues like Palestine, Kashmir, the US-Iran-Israel war, and the US-China rivalry over the years as well? You can be brief about this.
Yeah, I mean, our position has always been anti-imperialist.
Okay.
From the very beginning. Since, I mean, the socialist movement was born in an anti-colonial movement. So it's central for us to recognize that in the last 400, 500 years, the world has been run by Western monopolies. And that's something that has hurt the environment. It's destroyed societies. It's destroyed economies. And now, over the past 80 years, you've had U.S. hegemony, and people say it's Trump who's gone in the wrong direction. But if you look at the last 80 years, right, I mean, the American hegemony was created by, through an atomic bomb on Hiroshima and then eventually Nagasaki. And then there was bombardment of Korea, there's bombardment of Vietnam, of Cambodia, of Laos, and more than 92 regime change operations across the world. The US has been at war almost every year since 1941. And now all of that is accelerating. At this, just this year, they've kidnapped a president in Venezuela. They've gone to war in Iran. They're supporting the genocide in Raza and genocidal policies on Lebanon. And now they're planning a war on Cuba. So this is madness. You can't build democracy or any kind of decent society, let alone socialism, if you are under the threat of an imperial power that's gone completely rogue. So the struggle of every government, every state, every movement that resists empire, we see it as our own struggle, because you cannot develop a secure, progressive society if you fear that a bully is going to bomb you into submission all the time. So I think it's very important to create an equal world, an equality in international relations as a prerequisite for creating equality internally.
Okay. So recently you guys have joined the opposition alliance. Why has Left joined hands with TTAP? And because it's nearly opposite to your ideology.
That's a very good
question. People will call you hypocrites.
Yeah, well, we will tell them to read the history of the left and the history of the democratic movement in Pakistan. As I said, in the late 40s, early 50s, the Communist Party was working with the Muslim League. It was working with nationalist forces, even within the military. And hence you had the Rawalpindi conspiracy case, which, eventually led to the banning of the party and the rest of the stalwarts of the communist movement. Then in the 60s, the left was involved in the National Awami Party, which is again an alliance of different groups. And then a lot of leftists joined the People's Party, joined the movement for the restoration of democracy. So TTAP, us HKP joining TTAP is part of this tradition.
Okay.
And why were they doing that? It's because, from the beginning, the analysis was that if you are to fight a colonial state or a neo-colonial state, or a force that is as brutal as, the colonial machinery that was created here in South Asia, you cannot do it alone. You have to build alliances. Those alliances should be principled alliances. Those alliances should be based on the questions of the Constitution, based on defending the democratic rights of the people. And that understanding of politics as one of coalition building, alliance building, is necessary if we are to fight this, because nobody, not even a party as popular as the PTI is at the moment, or back in the day, People's Party, it was the most popular party in the 70s and the 80s. They couldn't do it alone. They needed alliances. That's why they made an alliance with left forces to create, back in the day, MRD, Movement for Restoration of Democracy. And now PTI has been forced to make an alliance as well.
Yes.
And our job is to work with other political forces and inject our ideas of social equality, economic justice, democracy, equality for women and minorities. All of those questions should be central to what we're trying to build. We don't have this expectation that we're going to have our own agenda completely implemented by TTAP. If that were the case, then we would have dissolved our party. We want to maintain our party. We want to maintain our work. We're organizing amongst workers, amongst students. We have our own study circles. We'll build our own base, but we will not be allergic to the idea of of alliances, because there's no pure politics. Politics always requires strategic thinking, and strategic thinking always requires thinking which forces at this current moment are nearest to you. And you build that force, because politics eventually is also about building a force. You build that force to push the Overton window open. That is the strategic thinking that the left has always had, and I think that's what we need to continue with.
Very right. I 100% agree with you. I'm about to move towards the end of this discussion. Why many people see the left as the marginal in Pakistani politics. Can you please briefly explain to our audience that what are the biggest structural challenges that it faces today, both culturally and institutionally?
So, as I said, the left the left hasn't had its own political party that's been very big. But its influence in society has been pretty large, right? So Faiz Saab, everybody recites Faiz Saab. Everybody recites Habib Jalib. These are people of the left. When we talk about the constitution, if you read the constitution of Pakistan, you'll be surprised. It's one of the most progressive constitutions in terms of economic justice, including, they've taken some of the articles, for example, the Article 3 of the Pakistani constitution, which says, there will be an end to all exploitation. It's taken directly from the Soviet Union. And Sheikh Rashid, not this Sheikh Rashid, there was a Baba Socialism, Sheikh Rashid, a labor leader from the 60s, 70s. He's the one who helped draft those articles. So we've been around the lawyers' movement, Raza and Ali Ahmed Kurd, Munir Malik, all of them were from the left, Rashid Rizvi. So the influence has been there, but we've not been able to form our own large political party. And that's partly because, the party was decimated very early on. The Communist Party was not the only party that was decimated. The Muslim League was also decimated, right? So every other Muslim League was a fake Muslim League.
Yes.
So that was decimated, which weakened our position. Then there was this entire propaganda that these people are foreign agents, that they're anti-religion, they're anti-family, when, clearly those who were sacrificing for Pakistan were the people who were in jail. And they were saying, we should not be aligned with the US in Sito Cento. We should have our own sovereign, independent foreign policy. These were people who were pro-Pakistan, who wanted Pakistan's sovereignty to be protected. They're the ones who were defending. They weren't against religion or against families. These were people who were defending the poorest families in Pakistan whose livelihoods, whose households were on the verge of destruction, still are on the verge of destruction. So these people who were talking about the peasants, were talking about the farmers, were talking about, students from working class, middle class backgrounds. These were people who loved the people of Pakistan, who loved the working people of Pakistan. All they hated were this tiny ruling class, which made an alliance with the US and sold our country out. So who's more pro-Pakistan? My point has always been that if you look at those, if you compare those who built properties abroad versus those who were tortured in Pakistani jails because they believed in the future of Pakistan, they believed in the future of the people of Pakistan, and these people who gave their lives for that cause, which of these two is more sincere? And for me, it's very clear. It's those who fought, those who died for a cause. Because on the other side, you have elites that have no cause but to make money, as much money as possible, and make the Pakistani people, especially the working class, pay the costs. And I think that's a model that's unsustainable. And we should feel no shame in reclaiming a legacy that has always exposed these people who have let down Pakistan again and again.
Very true, and this is very important when we read the history, that who was standing on the right side of the history. So my last question is that why should young people join the left in Pakistan?
Oh, because the right is giving no answers anymore. I think the whole structure has collapsed. Look at your statistics. 40% of Pakistan is living below poverty line. A UNDP report recently said that $17.4 billion are being given annually to the elites in subsidies. This is socialism for the rich. You already have socialism. It's for the rich, right? You're giving all these subsidies to the richest people in Pakistan,
Yes.
IPPs, banks, petroleum companies, landlords, military businesses, real estate. All of these are elites who are getting subsidies. They're getting protection. So you have socialism for the rich. It's a welfare state, but for the rich. On the other hand, all of these subsidies are being given based on borrowed money from the IMF and other global creditors. So they're not producing, top cars or top AI technology, or you don't have a very productive economy. It's not like the elites are competing with the German or the Italian or the British or the Chinese in terms of production. They're simply taking money from the creditors and then using that money to buy plots, here or in Paris or Panama, bank accounts or property in London or Dubai. This is an elite that is consuming too much but not producing enough. And the gap between the two is being imposed on the people of Pakistan, who have to repay all of this through, a hike in petrol prices, hike in sugar prices, hike in food prices, hike in medicine prices, less money for education, less money for health. And the youth, who constitute about 70% of Pakistan now, they are getting the worst deal. Most young people, despite having a really good job and showing good skills, even they will not be able to ever buy land in this country. They won't be able to build a house for themselves. And most young people don't even have good jobs. Most young people don't have stability at work. So what do young people do? They try to leave the country. And that's why you see people dying, while trying to cross the Mediterranean. There's so many precious Pakistani young people who could have been engineers, doctors, lawyers, leaders. They're dying in the ocean because they haven't been given no positive alternative in their own homeland. And that's because of this elite capture that I've just described. And the only way to fight it is to very clearly say that the problem is not one individual or two individuals or one party or this regime or that regime. The problem is a system that is designed to protect the welfare of the elites and to have socialism for the rich. And against that, you need a system which actually protects the welfare of ordinary people, which is basically socialism for the poor, socialism, which thinks of our common interests, our common desires, and elevates them over the private profits of certain families and individuals. And we need to, this will not change on its own. We'll have to build a force that can intellectually develop these ideas further.
Yeah.
How do we reform the agriculture sector? How do we reform the banking sector? How do we reform the energy sector? As well as create a force that can fight on the streets to impose its will against the current ruling classes.
Well, so there's a lot to learn from this conversation. Thank you so much for enlightening our audience on this topic. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much, sir, for joining
Pleasure.
the show.